Training and programming is not that complicated. You don't need anything fancy and you don't need expensive coaches. There are times, of course, when a coach can be useful to take the necessity of knowing things out of your hands so you can just focus on what needs doing. But if you want to invest a bit more time into learning the basics, you can get the vast majority of what a coach will provide for free. There are really three main principles required for good, effective training: consistency, diet and recovery, and progressive overload. You've probably heard all of those before, and that's because at the core of things, they are all you really need, regardless of the sport. Consistency just means that you need to do anything that you do for an extended period of time. This is because the body takes time to undergo changes and adaptations. You could certainly do a single session with a single maximal exercise and then do nothing else after, and you would possibly get a bit stronger after that. But because you are not following it with either higher stress or even equal stress work, the body will seek to do what it absolutely always does, to optimize itself. To be stronger or just to have a greater output than normal in any regard requires more energy than to not. And the body always seeks a path of least resistance, which depends on the situations that you put the body into consistently. If your life is 24/7 sitting and watching TV, the body will very quickly modify itself to become a 24/7 sitter who watches TV. Energy requirements will be low, cognitive clarity will be less needed, muscle mass will be almost unnecessary, and all sorts of other changes will take place given consistency in this lifestyle. Alternatively, if your life is 24/7 being active and exercising, the body will be forced to adapt to this lifestyle too. But the difference with existing in ways outside of the normal is that the body is forced into uncomfortable areas of change, which brings greater requirements for the body to adapt to. So you have to find a balancing level of activity and recovery so that the body can adapt more comfortably than being pushed to the limit all the time, which fits in nicely with the next point: diet and recovery. Animals eat to take in energy so that the body can perform all of the functions it is asked to do. Things like flavor and enjoyment are really secondary and very modern pleasures in terms of biology. So you only really need to eat for what you do. Many of the bodily functions are baseline and automatic, so you need to have a minimal amount of energy intake to allow those to continue, otherwise you would eventually die. And this is called BMR, or base metabolic rate, which you can easily find rough estimates of with online calculators. And in most cases, this should be a caloric minimum that you do not ever eat below for optimal health, even for weight loss. And then everything on top of that base level depends on your individual lifestyle, which for us means the training and what we want to get out of it. To get stronger and grow new muscle, tendon, or really any other kind of tissue, you simply need to break down the existing tissue with exercise, and then allow the body time and energy to recover and repair those. And if the energy or food is lacking, the body cannot do this optimally. It is possible for the body to allow this process using stored fat as fuel, but this is a much more expensive process than using freely available food sources, and so the body, being as lazy as it is, will do the absolutely bare minimum. So, as you all know, to grow bigger and stronger, you need to eat enough. And we can get into very specific numbers and nutrition types required for optimizing everything, but for 99% of people to get the results they want, it can be simplified to just this. To gain new muscle mass, or while aiming to lose weight to maintain existing muscle mass, eat at a higher protein intake than the average person. A good estimate is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, or 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, or as near to there as you can reach. This may be overkill for most people, but it will be a much leaner and healthier diet than eating the same calories but with a majority being fat or carbohydrates if the aim was to build new tissue, for which protein provides the base materials. And resting is vitally important too, since it allows all of these processes to take place with minimal disturbance. And the vast majority of this happens while you sleep, since this is when the greatest amounts of growth hormone are released into the body, which is one of the main drivers for all of these processes. So far we have consistency and diet, meaning having the required energy for the job, and recovery, meaning having time available for the job to be finished properly after the damage is done. And then we get on to progressive overload, which is much more specific to the things we do in the actual training. And it, again, is very simple. It just means that over time we aim to make the body work harder in some domain than before. And this just means that we ask the body to do something that is slightly outside of its current ability, so that it has something to adapt to. If we just did the same thing over and over, the body would adapt once and then realize it was already able to perform this task comfortably and then not adapt any further. Because, as we said before, the body is actually very lazy, or in a more positive sense, maximally optimal. It is important that the progression we aim at is only slightly beyond the current abilities. If the challenge is too much more than the body is able to handle, this is where injuries occur. So if I can bicep curl 5 kilograms today, on the next training day I might try to curl 6 kilograms, and that is perfectly fine. But if I get over ambitious and try to curl 50 kilograms, the risk of injury to the tissue involved becomes much greater. It is not really that complicated. It just requires a little common sense and the ability to know your own body and to train yourself in the areas you are able to train effectively, rather than aiming at anybody else's trainable area and trying to use those same numbers for yourself. And this progression does not have to be only an increase in weight, it can be progression in many other ways. You could increase the amount of reps you do with a weight, or the amount of sets, or the range of motion, or the speed you do the movement at, or the amount of time you rest between sets, etc, etc. Basically, if it is something that could be changed, you can probably use it to progress. But for the most part, weight and volume, meaning reps and sets, are the most popular variables and the ones that lead to the greatest increase in performance, especially in strength and hypertrophy. And those are the very basic fundamentals of training: consistency, diet and recovery, but those could really be classed as just recovery since that is what diet enables, and progressive overload. You can also throw things on top of that like anabolic steroids, which essentially just enhances the recovery aspect, but even those will work poorly if those three fundamentals are not in place before that. And this basic trio of consistency, recovery and progressive overload is not only unique to lifting weights in the gym, it also applies to any type of adaptation you want the body to undergo. If you wanted to improve playing an instrument, you could just repeat one song over and over, but if you applied this more structured system of progression and recovery, meaning you tried a challenging task and then allowed the body to process the new information, the progression would be much more forwards in motion. You can do reps and sets on the table, and you can ask your opponent to resist harder, or you can attempt to move faster, etc, etc. But the variability here is much more unpredictable, which is why basic strength training in the gym is much more useful as a building tool for most people, since it can be tracked and planned and then put into practice on the table properly. In the next part, I will outline a very basic strength training plan for arm wrestling, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get to see that as soon as it drops. Otherwise, you can check out the Patreon for more content, including training plans, and join the Discord server for more conversations around those topics. That's it, I'll see you next time.